Have things changed in the past couple of years as far as new construction goes in the MatSu Valley? Are we seeing a drastic increase for the average sold price for new construction properties here in the MatSu Valley? Well, we're going to find that out today. My name's Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor with Keller Williams here in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today, we're going to be looking at something that I've had to become more and more aware of in the past couple of years, and that's what's going on in the new construction scene here in the MatSu Valley, because the inventory has been getting so compressed in the past couple of years just due to COVID and everything else happening that I've had to increasingly look at these new construction homes as a viable option. So we're going to be talking about how things have changed over the past couple of years and try to start peeling back some layers, because new construction is such a big deal in the MatSu Valley. I heard somewhere before about 14% of the state lives in the MatSu Valley, Palmer, Wasilla primarily, but it does constitute nearly 50% of the construction going on in the entire state. So pretty big deal in that area. But before we get started, do make sure you give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, so you can receive more information like this in the future. And let's go ahead and talk about today's market update, looking at new construction in the MatSu Valley. The first thing I want to point out is that just looking at the 10-year comparison for what's going on in new construction for the MatSu Valley, we're seeing a pretty aggressive appreciation over the past couple of years. Usually we'll see, little 1, 2, 3, maybe 4% appreciation. Last year we saw an 8.8% jump in appreciation. For instance, the average sold price last year for a new construction property was about $375,000. Now it's about $406,000. So you do see a pretty aggressive jump even just year to date for where we are right now from where we were before. Now, another thing that really stood out to me looking 10 years back is that the number of new construction properties hasn't really been as high as what it is right now. Like usually a couple of years ago, we're seeing closer to about 300 new construction homes in the MatSu Valley. Now we're seeing closer to about 360, 370, which that's what we saw back in 2015. And then it, pretty quickly took a dive after that, and we ended up somewhere closer to about 280 new construction homes. So we're starting to go back up just because there's a much higher demand for properties. People aren't selling their homes for whatever reason in this environment. And so builders are having to kind of step up to the plate and increase their production, even though it's getting more and more expensive to do so. So that's number one. Now, taking a bit of a deeper dive into the data we have from the Alaska Multiple Listing Service, what we're seeing on the price, number one, is the average sold price for properties that were built back in 2018, 2017. And I'm just going to give you kind of these 2 years, looking about 4 or 5 years back, and then the most recent data we have. The average sold price for new construction about 3 or 4 years ago was about $340,000. Now the average sold price is about $456,000. So we're seeing a pretty drastic increase for the average sold price in the MatSu Valley. Now the second thing that I'm seeing is, keep in mind, I just gave you the overall number, or the overall idea of how much the average sold price has gone up. The average size of the properties in the MatSu Valley has also gone up, though, because the average size of a property about 4 years ago was about 1,881 square feet. Now it's about 1,931. So that doesn't sound like a huge difference, but when we're talking about the rules of averages here, and we're seeing a 50 square foot increase, that does give us an indication that the square footage is slowly but surely going up. And we've really seen that trend every year since then. The size of the properties in the MatSu Valley are going up. Now, the third thing that I really want you to understand about what's going on in the new construction for the MatSu Valley is that the average sold price for properties has gone up significantly. The average sold price per square foot back in 2018, 2019 was about $183 per square foot. Now it's about $235 per square foot. So that really does explain a lot on why we're seeing such an increase, because not only are we seeing an increase in the built size for the homes that are coming up online, but we're also seeing that the average price per square foot is going up significantly as well, which is what we would expect when we're having issues with supply chains and shortages and everything else that's happening. Just the building material is going to go up, so the cost per square foot is going to go up as well. Let's take a quick break here real quick. For those of you who've been watching for a while, you do know that I host a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast, in which I interview people who actually live up here and talk about their experiences. So it's not just me droning on about what it's like living up here in Alaska. So if you want to check out one of my most recent episodes on that podcast, do make sure to go check the description section down below. And make sure to enjoy the podcast and get all the information out there that you possibly can. Now, let's go ahead and finish up by looking at a couple other factors that I really like to pay attention to when we're talking about new construction and kind of the health of the market. And that is, number one, the days on market. And another thing, where exactly are all these new construction properties being built? Because we see that according to the MLS, that obviously there has been an increase. We're about where we were back in 2015. And where are all these houses being built? So the first thing that I want to look at, though, is going to be the days on market. So the days on the market about 4 years ago was actually about 68, and today it's actually about 42 if you're just looking at new construction. Now that is blistering fast for new construction, okay? Because you've got stuff that sells on the first day all the way up to the property that takes about 200-300 days to actually sell. So it encompasses a lot, and the fact that we are down to about 42 days really does say a lot about how aggressive and how fast moving this market really is right now. Now, yeah, I mean, we're looking at the years between those two that we're looking at. I think it went up to about 72 days was the average days on market back in 2019, 2020. Kind of getting into that pandemic, and it shot down to about 49 the very next year. So really quick moving is what we're seeing right now, and that really is a good indication for the demand that we're seeing for new construction properties. Now, the last thing that I see really looking at this data is just how much demand there is for new construction properties in certain parts of the MatSu Valley. So historically, Wasilla is the number one place for where new construction properties are being built in the MatSu Valley. That's probably going to continue moving into the future, but what we are seeing is that Palmer is actually becoming more and more a place where people actually want to build new construction. Because of the increase we've seen over the past couple of years, it's actually been mostly an increase in the construction going on in Palmer, not as much in the MatSu Valley. So not necessarily in Wasilla. So Wasilla has more or less stayed kind of consistent in their number of new construction properties. Palmer is really the one that started to jump up and have a lot more new construction in the area. To give you an example, the number of new construction properties in Wasilla back in 2018, 2019 was sitting at, I think it was roughly about 185 homes that were being built in Wasilla. This year, it's about 200. Now, to give you some context, Palmer, the same year, 4 years ago, there was actually about, I think it was 62 properties were built in Palmer during that year. This year, 135. So meanwhile, we've seen a little bit of an increase in the number of properties being built in Wasilla. We've seen a doubling for the properties being built in Palmer. Now, I kind of suspect that's because Palmer Fishhook, that's becoming more and more of a place where people want to build. And we're seeing more projects going on in the ranch and other parts of Palmer because it is a very desirable place to live. And so I kind of expect to see that continuing on in the future. We've seen a bit of an increase in other places like Big Lake, Meadow Lakes, other parts of the MatSu Valley as well. But primarily the lion's share of the increase for the new construction has been in Palmer. So I sure hope this has been useful. If this new construction update is something you do find useful, make sure you put in the comment section down below so I know this is something we need to do more of in the future. We just need to do something a little bit different this week. So if this is something that's useful for you, do make sure you put it down in the comment section. Maybe we'll do this on a more regular basis. But sure hope this is useful for you. Leave your comments in the section down below, thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.